to tear our skin up from the bottom, leaves our ankles. Just wander back and forth and leave it. Build it into pinnacles and shrines of some ghastly predicament in mind you'll find. Leaves us plastered to a bed of hairs with me all curled up near the bottom with my chest unbared. Oh, but dear, the sky is low. Gather up its harm in gauze with grateful arms. Oh, but dear, the sky is low. Gather up its harm in gauze with grateful arms.
My name is Tkacz, and I was born in LA but raised here in Bakersfield since I was 9 years old and been in and out ever since. I'm 28, been climbing for about 5 years, a little over 5 years. One day went into the local climbing gym that we didn't know existed. It existed for like 3 years. It's really small, it's like a bike shop with a climbing gym. And went in with a couple friends, and that was it. Kept climbing ever since, 4 or 5 times a week. Got a job there eventually, and worked at a couple climbing gyms now, and love at first sight kind of thing, no doubt. Pretty much since I started climbing, I've primarily been bouldering. The reason is because most of the climbing gym is pretty small with short walls, and so I pump out at like 25 feet no matter what when I go sport climbing. Just started to get double digits this last year for myself, which I was pretty excited on, but when I first started climbing, I was really weak physically. I never was a strong person. And so bouldering helped me build strength, and it's taken me 5 years to get to this point. The nature of the climbing in the canyon, the rock quality is not great. What happens is that the boulder problems tend to be far apart. So you'll drive, and then you'll hike up to do 2 or 3 problems. Then you'll have to go back to your car and drive to the next sector to do 2 or 3 problems. I think the most problems we have in one area is maybe like 5 or 6. So, you know, living in Bakersfield's a place like any other place. It's good and bad like any other place, but you get used to driving out of town to go do things a lot because there's not a lot going on here. And the same thing with climbing when I first started. We were driving 4 hours to Bishop, 5 hours to Yosemite, 5 hours to Joshua Tree, an hour and a half to Pine Mountain or the Altor, you know, go an hour and a half to LA for Malibu or Santa Barbara for all that coastal climbing, which is cool because we actually have a lot of really great climbing nearby us. But you're not, you know, getting off of work in the afternoon and going and climbing with that style, with that distance. We found Narso and Balrog around the same time. Actually, Mark Schiffauer found him. He's the one who's been pushing development. He's probably the longest living in Bakersfield boulderer that we have around. And so he found all these years ago, a lot of these. I'm not good at lip traverses. He's excellent at lip traverses. So it was mostly him working out the beta across the lip. It was really difficult, especially for me.
It's different when you're standing up, when you're underneath it. Index there, and then thumb lays on that. I go one more over. Index in the hole.
Okay. I'm gonna have to try a few different things. And so it took a lot of work to figure out the best little spots, and it's very, very beta intensive, this climb. This is the first time that I'd ever developed anything. I'd ever gone to a place where there was a boulder that had never been climbed on, and a landing that needed to be built, and moss that needed to be brushed off, and holes that needed to be broken, and beta that needed to be figured out. And so up until that point, I had been like a gym climber, going places and just climbing new climbs, or climbs that had been done before, new for me, you know, like in Bishop. And so to get into that more creative part of it, where you're literally creating, even though the materials are still there, the medium is there, you're creating something out of it with your expression on the rock. when the canyon started being developed, now that there's a number of climbs up there, you can get off work in the afternoon if it's a cool afternoon and go run up there and climb by yourself and have a good time and get a good workout in and climb some hard stuff. And it brings a whole new sense of like home to Bakersfield. Maybe 25 minutes once you get outside of Bakersfield. The canyon, Bakersfield is really big, so it takes a while to drive across it. And it's really not very far, it's just super windy. You know, you take a half day off of work or half day off of schoolwork and wake up a little bit earlier and come up and enjoy some cool temperatures, even in the summer, and get some climbing in and climb one of the like Kern classics, I guess is what it is. And so it's kind of a nice thing that we got going on here where we can just like get up and get out of the city early in the morning and enjoy some peace and quiet away from the hustle and bustle and, you know, do some damn rock climbing. Not really any better way to start the day, I don't think. Narsil was like the first hard boulder problem that Mark showed me, and it kind of spawned the next, that was like the first stage development in the canyon. And so that's the one that kind of spawned the stoke to continue on. And that was the beginning of the last couple years. I mean, Narsil was one of those ones that you come to and you look at it and it just looks perfect. And there's the perfect number of holds, the perfect number of crimps, the perfect number of knobs. Like if one of those were missing, it would be much harder, if not impossible. And if there was any more added to it, it would be much less aesthetic. And it's beautiful, it's a fantastic climb.
How could you remember what to hit? How could you forget? How could you forget? How could you remember what to hit? How could you remember what to hit? How could you forget? After all, and always, and always, and always, and always, and always.
Soaron's like a very new bouldery style of climb. There's like your heel hooking above your head. You've got big swings and dynamic movements in it. Very hard, and like you're risking like falling on your back a lot because you're heel hooking above your head. Fuck! Didn't have the heel right. And so it's very different from, say, Narsil, which is much more straightforward. And it's super aesthetic and in a beautiful setting because it's on this slope that slopes downward. So behind you, you can see the other side of the canyon. You can see down and towards the river and up. And it's got shade from trees. And they built this wonderful landing on it, so the landing's nice and flat. And it's just, I don't know, it's a very, in my opinion, it's a very difficult climb. The hardest one out of the ones that we've got established, I think.
Someone's breathing's touching some membrane. The rhythm's marching away, like someone else is pulling the strings on every move.
But I think one of the things that I've decided on is that there are maybe 4 things that almost anything can apply to everybody. And one is you have your body, which is this thing, in different states of disrepair or ability and things like that. And then you have your mind or your soul, whatever you want to call it, depends on who you are. And then you have the outside world, which is everything, other people, nature, society, all that stuff that's outside your mind and your body, which is kind of contained in this one. And the fourth one is the relationship between the three. And I think any good life pursuit, which is what I consider my climbing to be, has to encompass and embody and cultivate the three separately and the relationship between the three. And I think climbing does that very well. I don't think there's a lot of things that do that, but I think climbing pretty much hits the nail on the head for that one. And so that's why I climb. I climb because it makes me better mentally, it makes me better physically, it makes my relationship with the world and society and nature more clear, and even with people, because I come to like really great relationships with people through climbing. So I get a lot of personal edification out of it. It makes me more human, I think.